This year we have been working a little bit differently compared to other years. Today we're gonna look over more in detail in the next release of ThinLinc 4.20. ThinLinc should work on any type of device the user might have. No matter if you use a Windows laptop or a MacBook or some other Linux device, you should still be able to access ThinLinc. The first area of improvement, we call it proxy support for web access. There are different ways to structure your network. You might want to have your network infrastructure behind one type of domain or URL. This was not well supported before, but with this release it's now possible to do this. And also in more complicated setups where you have layered proxies that allow you to put different folders for different parts of your ThinLinc cluster and stuff like that. This feature is about allowing the ThinLinc web services to work in more scenarios.
We have our profile chooser in ThinLinc. So what we have done for this release is just add a couple of few more ones that we should make it simpler to use our box for new users.
The second topic, the key property secure. First off, this is normally what the web access login interface looks like. For the users, it doesn't feel like home. So this is a light variant where you're able to change the logo. If you want to ensure that your customers really feel at home, you also have the possibility to set a background image that surrounds the box where you input your login details. The second topic in this area is regarding security keys. Before this release, it was still possible to log in with some types of security keys. The improvement here is that we now support a wider range of these types of devices. The third topic, we normally call it just easy to use. First example of this, having a history of the ThinLinc service that you have been connecting to. In a customer use case, this could be useful if you have multiple clusters, for example, divided for different types of tasks. So if you're a consultant, you work in multiple places and all of them use ThinLinc, you might find yourself commonly switching between ThinLinc servers. Another quite visual change is the layout of our client options. Before we had these old-fashioned tabs at the top where you switch between different option pages. We have now switched over to a more modern layout where you have a list that allows you to switch between these. We made some nice improvements for the web access interface as well. First of all, we've been catching up with this toggle for the password visibility. In native client it was part of the previous release, but now web access has this as well.
It's quite common when working in Linux to basically use a very specific key combination. This key combination can be intercepted by the browsers and will essentially close the tab you are currently working on. It has historically been very common to accidentally close your session and having to reconnect, which is not a huge deal, but it can be an inconvenience. This is an addition to the profile chooser introduction page. Now users are given the choice to basically read this once and skip it for future logins. It's essentially a don't show this again checkbox. With this latest edition, it will remember your recent choice and pre-select it is the feature. Basically in the last release we tailored the warning messages when there are no profiles available to the user. But it felt a bit jarring and confusing with this technical information, so it's been packaged a bit more nicely to save end users from any potential confusion.
Another change that has been made to the web admin interface is that configuring the profiles that will show up. That interface for the admin has been improved. In the list to the left, the icon will show up to make the list a little bit more visual. But most importantly, when configuring the details of this profile, you now get a preview of the images and the icons that you choose. Makes the interface feel a little bit more interactive and engaging. This is a good addition and a helpful reminder for the sysadmin at the customer to actually ensure that they have updated license files before they upgrade to a new version. Another part of the installation process, the admin can get help from the ThinLinc setup, and our installation wizard can then ensure that the firewall on the system where you install ThinLinc allows the traffic needed for ThinLinc to work. Previously, this has been just a yes or no question. Do you want the ThinLinc setup to modify your firewall or not? But the reality can be a little bit more fine-grained than that. So what's new in this release is that we give more control to the sysadmin to choose which parts he wants to open up for in his network. These choices are now also remembered for the next time. Another area of the setup that has been improved is the part where you specify admin email addresses should get updates, and it's now possible to specify multiple. Not everyone wants to use the web admin interface, they want to have full control and use the command line. And one of our tools have gotten a nice improvement here. Using the tool called TLCTL, an admin is able to list information about their ThinLinc cluster, their installation. They can see, for example, how many users are currently logged in. They can see what the distribution looks between different servers in the cluster. In order to make the product work well in a scalable way, when you have a very large installation, the process of getting this updated information can turn out to be expensive if you have a very large installation. So we have this on a schedule. We don't check every single second what the status is. You can now run this tool with a refresh command to ensure that you get the fully up-to-date information. Another improvement on our command line tools is colors. It's quite common with more modern command line tools that you get these small hints of styling in the output. You get some bold letters where it's most important that you look first. You get some colors in some cases where you indicate if there's a success or if it's a failure. In web admin, you have a lot of data represented in tables. These types of tables where you're supposed to get an overview of how things are working, they quickly become unusable if you have no way to structure, but I think we get a really long way being able to sort on different types of data.
So for the documentation, when you install the server, we have been installing the documentation alongside it for quite some time now, but we haven't really made it available for the end user. You now get a link to the installed version. One advantage of that is that it will always link to the same version that you have installed, because you might not have the latest version installed.
Final area that has been improved regards important bug fixes that will make people happy. The first one is in the Windows client installer. Until now, the translation didn't work for Russian and Turkish. So people that wish to read in Turkish and Russian now are able to do so for the Windows installer. For Mac users, we have a nice quality of life improvement. Prior to this bug fix on Mac, the experience was that you downloaded a package from our website, you got a file, you had to double-click that file, and that would mount a ThinLinc client folder on your computer, and then you had to open that folder, and then you could install the ThinLinc client on Mac. Some people wish to use smart cards for authenticating in ThinLinc or in some other application. With this release, we have made some fixes to an issue where having such a smart card redirected into a ThinLinc session where you want to use it within a ThinLinc session in a program in there caused a lot of issues. Lastly, there are some other changes. The first one is that we have removed support for 32-bit applications. If there are people who still wishes to do this, they can use an older ThinLinc version for 3 more years until support runs out. Lastly, for the Windows client, so this is not for applications on the server, this is for the client application. On Windows, we offered an installer for 32-bit Windows up until now. That has also been removed in this release.